I always took the shortcut. Everybody kept telling me that I was stupid, that if I just stuck to the main street, I'd be fine. The lights were bright and people were always around, even at midnight, and the cops made their presence known. But Main Street added 10 minutes to my walk home, and after bartending for 7 hours, my legs would feel like bricks. 10 minutes was 10 minutes too long for me. The alley was narrow and crooked, tucked between 2 old brick apartment buildings and a row of boarded up shops. Half the bulbs in the rusted fixtures overhead had long since blown, leaving these big gaps of shadow. The pavement was cracked and littered with broken glass, old beer cans, and the kind of trash that told you nobody really gave a damn about this part of town. It always smelled like piss and rotting garbage, but I was used to it. After enough nights dragging myself home at 2 in the morning, this place became routine for me. On this night in particular, though, something was different. It was a Tuesday in late August, humid as hell. The bar hadn't really been busy, but I stayed late, cleaning up because the other bartender had bailed early. By the time I locked up, the streets were dead quiet. Even Main Street was empty except for a couple of taxis cruising slowly. The city had that strange hollow silence that made everything feel like I was walking through a stage set after the actors had already gone home. I crossed the corner and slipped into the alley, my sneakers crunching over the gravel, the sound bouncing back at me off the walls. I told myself it's the same as always, dark, empty, and harmless. But halfway through, I couldn't shake the sense that I was no longer alone. You know that feeling, when every hair on your arm rises and your body knows something that your brain just doesn't know yet? That's what hit me. My pulse jumped, and without meaning to, I glanced over my shoulder. Nothing, just darkness stretching back to the street that I'd already left behind. I picked up my pace, and my backpack jostled against my shoulder blades. And then, faintly, but there, nonetheless, the scrape of a shoe on concrete, somewhere behind me. The sound came again, quick and sharp, like somebody adjusting their stride to match mine. My stomach dropped. I forced myself not to turn around. Turning meant eye contact, acknowledgement. Predators would thrive on that. Just keep walking, I told myself. Don't give them any kind of reason. The alley stretched ahead of me, the exit a rectangle of orange glow from the streetlight beyond it. It wasn't that far, maybe 50 yards, but in the half-dark with brick walls towering on either side, it felt like a tunnel, a goddamn trap. The footsteps behind me grew steadily, not rushed, not hesitant, just there, following. I broke. My walk snapped into a jog and I started booking it. My keys dug into my palm, wedged between my fingers like this shitty set of brass knuckles. The scrape of shoes answered me now, faster and closer. Whoever it was, they'd been waiting for me to pick up the pace.
Hey.
The voice was male, rough, like a smoker. I didn't answer, my lungs were seizing up. Every instinct screamed to not engage.
Hey, I'm talking to you!
The words shot down the alley, bouncing off the walls, and my jog now turned into a sprint. The exit was right there, 30 yards, maybe less. I could see the traffic beyond it, the safety of lit streets. Then, he was ahead of me. I don't know how. 1 second the alley was empty, and the next his silhouette filled the exit, cutting me off. He was tall, broad shoulders, something glinting in his hands. My legs locked and I skidded and almost fell. My chest heaved as the sounds of footsteps behind me didn't stop either because there was more than one. Now, a laugh echoed, an overtly confident one. I spun around desperately and the second man stepped out of the shadows that I'd just run past, blocking the way back. Thin and twitchy with eyes that darted like he smoked something cheap and dirty. He had a length of chain looped around his wrist, dangling to the ground. The one at the exit raised up his hand. The glint of a knife was long and rusty. My throat was now dried up and no words came out.
Wallet,
the twitchy one said.
And your phone, toss him down.
I reached slowly into my pocket and my hand shook so bad I almost dropped the phone before I could even pull it free. My other still gripped my keys like an idiot. The one with the knife noticed me. "Oh, that's cute. You planning to scratch me with those?" They both laughed. I tossed my phone, then my wallet. Total, utter defeat. "That's better," the chain man said. Then he stepped closer and started stooping for my stuff. And that's when I took the opportunity and ran. Straight at the one with the knife, and I don't think he really expected it. None of them did. I roared, every ounce of panic forcing me forward, and my shoulder slammed into his face. He grunted and stumbled back, and the knife clattered to the pavement. Pain exploded in my side. The chain whipped across my ribs, tearing into me. I still didn't stop though. I shoved that knife guy hard, sending him sprawling into the brick wall, then dove to the ground where the blade had landed. My fingers closed around the handle, slick with grime. I spun around, swinging wildly. The chain man leapt back, eyes wide. His smirk was no longer there. I slashed, the blade cutting the air inches from his chest, and he circled and cursed me. The one that I'd shoved into the wall was already pushing up, wheezing but furious. Blood was dripping from his mouth where his lip had split. His eyes were burning holes through me.
"You're dead, you little shit,"
he said. I didn't answer him. There's no time. My only thought was clear. Fight like a cornered animal or die here, nameless in an alley that smelled like piss and garbage. The chain whistled again, and this time I ducked and lunged forward, drove that knife out in a blind thrust. I felt it connect, hot resistance, then give. The chain man screamed, dropping his weapon, clutching his arm where the blood was now gushing through his fingers. Again, I didn't think, I just bolted for the exit. The knife guy lunged at me, catching my backpack strap, and the world yanked sideways. I hit the ground hard, cheek scraping against the asphalt, and my grip on that knife had slipped. He landed on me, snarling, his breath rancid in my ear. His hands were now clawing for the blade. As I shoved upward, twisting my hands free to find his face, I jammed my thumb into his eye as hard as I could. His scream was raw and animalistic. His weight then shifted just enough for me to roll. My hand found that knife again, and I didn't hesitate. I drove it backward once, twice, until his grip now slackened. Then I was up, stumbling, drenched in sweat and blood. The chain man was hunched, still screaming, and the knife guy was writhing on the ground, clutching his side. I didn't wait another second to see if they'd follow. I ran harder than I'd ever run in my life, out into the street, into the flood of headlights and honking horns. People stared at me, but nobody stopped. The city swallowed their indifference like it always did. But I was alive, for now at least. I didn't stop running until my lungs were burning and my legs turned to rubber. I made it 3 blocks before I collapsed against a bus stop bench, heaving and sweat soaking through my shirt. My hands were sticky with blood, some mine, some of it not. The knife was gone. I must have dropped it somewhere in my sprint. People passed me. A couple slowed and glanced and then kept going. Nobody wanted to get involved with a bleeding kid at 2 a.m. I finally pulled my phone from my pocket, except it wasn't there. Right, I tossed it back in the alley. My fucking wallet too. The only thing I'd carried out of that hell was blood and a heartbeat that felt like it was about to explode. I stumbled into a gas station. The clerk froze when he saw me, hand hovering over the panic button, until I choked out, "Call the cops." The police came, more questions and reports, flashing lights painting the window red and blue. They drove me back to the alley, and by then my adrenaline had drained into a cold ache that left me shaking. The alley looked the same as it always did. Cracked pavement, trash bags split open, shadows swallowing up the corners. The only thing missing now was the men. No blood trails, no chain, no knife, just emptiness. You sure this is where it took place?" one of the officers asked me, his tone obviously skeptical. I nodded so hard that my neck was hurting. "Yeah, they were here, both of them. One had a chain, the other had a knife. My words tumbled frantic, but the officer's expression didn't change. They took my statement anyway, promised to keep an eye out, and I knew from the way they scribbled half-hearted notes that nothing was going to come of it. Back at my apartment, I scrubbed my hands raw. The sink water ran pink, then red, and finally clear. And when I looked up, the mirror showed somebody that I didn't really recognize. Eyes wide, face pale, jaw tight like I was still waiting for the knife to come back down. I didn't sleep very well that night. I really couldn't. Every creak in my building would make me jolt awake. Every gust of wind outside sounded like their footsteps. 2 days later, I saw a headline on the local news. "Body found in West Side Alley." That same area, same description. No name released. Police suspected some kind of gang violence. I didn't really need the name. I already knew. And, well, that's the last time I ever took that shortcut. Didn't matter how tired I was, how late I got off, or how heavy my feet felt. I stick to the main street now, bright lights, crowds, and cameras, because that alley isn't a shortcut. It's a grave waiting for you to step inside. And I came closer than I'll ever really want to admit to being another nameless kid who never made it home. I actually used to love working the late shift. There was just something about the quiet of 2 a.m, the way the world outside the diner seemed to almost fall asleep. It really made the grind just feel easier. Customers were fewer, mostly just truckers, drunks, the kind of night owls who nursed black coffee until dawn. By then, the place would smell like bacon grease and burnt toast, no matter how much cleaner we sprayed. The best part of the shift, though, was my smoke break. 10 minutes out by the dumpsters, leaning up against the bricks with a cigarette and silence. No clattering dishes, no waitresses gossiping by the register, no manager peering up over my shoulder. Just me, the night, and the hiss of my lighter. The alley behind the diner wasn't pretty. A single flickering bulb cast weak lights over cracked asphalt. The dumpsters reeked of sour milk and fryer oil. Some nights raccoons would crawl out, bold enough to hiss at me while I smoked. Other nights it was rats scurrying in the shadows. Still, I preferred it to the noise inside. Out here, it felt like the world had just forgotten me. On this night in particular, I lit up and pulled my apron loose, stretching my back. It was humid, sticky, the kind of air that clung to your skin. I'd barely taken 2 drags when I took notice of him. At first, I really thought he was just some other homeless guy digging through the trash, a tall figure lingering near the far dumpster. His outline was faint in the bad light. His clothes were loose, maybe a jacket far too big for his frame. I couldn't see his face, but I could feel his eyes, fixated on me. I froze with my cigarette halfway up to my lips. Usually the homeless would avoid me, shuffling off without a word, but this man wasn't moving. He just stood there, leaning slightly, head cocked, watching me. Hey, I called out to him, voice firm. You can't be back here, man. Nothing though, not even a twitch. Just these pale teeth flashing when he finally stepped forward, and something sharp glinting in his hand. His grin widened as he stepped into the light. His face was oily and unshaven. His hair was slicked back in greasy strands. The thing in his hand wasn't a knife, at least not exactly. It looked like a sharpened screwdriver, duct tape wrapped around the handle. My cigarette fell from my fingers. I backed up and reached for the steel door that led to the kitchen. My hand brushed against the metal, but the latch had locked behind me. I need my keys, and they were still inside my apron pocket, inside the damn diner. The man's shoes scuffed closer, almost like he was enjoying this. Look, I don't have any cash, I said. Whatever you want, just... He didn't answer me, he just kept coming forward, head tilted, grin nailed on his face. The screwdriver caught the light again and my chest tightened. I darted left toward the row of dumpsters. The alley would narrow there, ending in a chain link fence with a gate that usually stuck halfway closed, if I could squeeze through. The man then lunged at me. I stumbled and slammed into a dumpster hard enough to rattle the lid. The reek of spoiled food hit my nose as I shoved past, scraping my arm on rusted metal. Behind me, his footsteps had picked up, quick and heavy, far too close. The gate loomed open, just like I'd hoped it to be. I dropped low and forced my body through the narrow gap. The chain link shredded my sleeve, skin tearing as I clawed forward, and I felt his hand brush up against my leg, fingernails scraping denim. I burst out onto the narrow service lane that ran behind the diner. My lungs seized. I bolted, my sneakers slapping against the asphalt. But he was fast, far too fast. His steps were slamming closer every second, echoing off the brick walls around me. I veered right, heart slamming up against my ribs. Ahead, another steel service door stood ajar. Somebody must have left it open for trash runs, and I dove inside. The storage hall was dim, lined with metal shelves stacked with flour bags and canned goods. My breath was now tearing out in ragged gasps. I sprinted down the road, hoping to loop around and slip into the diner unnoticed. But the door behind me creaked, and I heard the hinges whine. "Come out," his voice finally rasped, crooked and broken like he hadn't even spoken in years.
Don't make it worse.
I crouched low and pressed up against a shelf, my knees now trembling. The screwdriver scraped against metal as he dragged it along the racks, each screech louder than the last. I couldn't stay still though. I forced myself to crawl, keeping low, weaving through the boxes of styrofoam cups and cartons of ketchup packets. And then I heard footsteps ahead of me. He cut me off. I spun back, but he was there too, slipping between the shelves like he'd almost been here before, like he knew the place better than I did. My panic surged. My hand shot out and grabbed the nearest thing that I could find, a glass bottle of hot sauce, and when he lunged, I swung. The bottle shattered up against his cheek, spraying red across his face. He screamed, clutching his eye, and the screwdriver clattered below. I didn't have time to think. I shoved him hard and ran. His body then slammed up against the shelves, metal rattling, boxes toppling. I bolted through the hall, past the prep station, bursting out into the kitchen diner. Grease popped on the stove. The cook spun around, wide-eyed. Jesus, what the fuck? Before I could answer, the man then barreled through the doorway, blood running down his cheek, screwdriver now back in his hand. The cook grabbed the first thing within reach, a cast iron skillet, and swung it like a bat. The crack was sickening. The man's head snapped sideways and his body collapsed in a heap on the linoleum. Silence, just the hiss of the fryer and my own ragged breaths. I stared at the man's body, chest heaving. The grin was gone, and his teeth were red. "All the cops," I whispered to him. The cook just nodded at me and fumbled for the phone. A few seconds now passed, and when I looked down again, the man wasn't there. I heard the door to the alley banging open and then swinging on its hinge. The night air then rolled in, and the cook cursed and dropped the phone. We both rushed out back, and the alley was empty. It's the dumpsters and the shadows. The police showed up 10 minutes later, but by then, I was sitting on a milk crate out back, chain smoking like my lungs didn't even matter anymore. My hands were still shaking, and every time that steel door creaked, my stomach would flip, like I thought he was coming back in. The officers searched the alley, and of course nothing. No man, no blood trail, just that broken hot sauce bottle in my shredded up sleeve. The cook swore up and down that he'd hit the guy with the skillet, that he felt bone give when it connected. They nodded and jotted a few notes, promised to file a report. But their eyes said the same thing that they were probably thinking. "We don't believe you." One officer muttered to us, "It's probably just some tweaker. They tend to scatter when they hear sirens, you know?" I wanted to scream. Nobody moves like that. Nobody takes a skillet to the skull like that and then just gets up and walks away, then disappears. For weeks after this event, I didn't step out back for a smoke. Every night I thought I felt those eyes again, head cocked and that grin far too wide. Every time I locked the dumpster gate, I half expected him to be waiting on the other side. One morning, the diner's small TV was tuned to the local news, and I almost dropped my tray when his face filled the screen.
Authorities are searching for this man, wanted in connection with multiple assaults in the county. Witnesses describe his weapon of choice as a sharpened screwdriver.
The grainy photo on screen was the same face that I'd seen grinning at me behind the dumpster. Oily hair, hollow cheeks. The news said that he'd been living off-grid, drifting from town to town, attacking women behind bars, diners, laundromats. All the same setup, late at night when nobody was looking. I stood there frozen, coffee pot in hand, listening as the anchor added,
Police believe he may still be in the area. Citizens are urged to use caution.
That was 2 years ago, and to my knowledge, they never caught him, and his face faded from the news cycle, replaced by newer stories, fresher crimes. But every single time I walk home at night, I catch myself glancing over my shoulder still. And still to this day, every time when I take the trash out, my hand will shake when I grab the back door latch. I cut the engine and let the van tick quiet. Midnight air is heavy, pressing in through the cracked window. Dumpsters line up in the alley, the smell of rot and grease seeping inside. I tilt my seat back, just 10 minutes. 10 minutes shut-eye before the next run. Phone alarm set, hat low, eyes closed. Then I hear a scraping sound. My eyes snap open. My heart kicks hard. Another scrape, another thud, heavy and final like something hitting the pavement. I sit up and grip the wheel. My headlights catch two men at the mouth of the alley. They're dragging a carpet, long and heavy, the ends wrapped up in duct tape. It bends in the middle, too much weight for anything but a body. My throat closes. One man adjusts his grip, the other turns. His face lifts, eyes catching mine through the windshield. He freezes and his head tilts. Recognition. The carpet drops and both men are now looking at me. They start walking toward the van. Keys twist, engine coughs and dies. Fuck. They're coming closer now. One swings a pipe in his hand, the other got something shorter and sharper. I twist again and the engine roars. Relief floods and I'm gone in a snap and slam that gear in a drive. The tall one's hand clamps the door handle and yanks hard. It's locked. He smashes the glass with a pipe and the van shakes. I floor it. My tires are screaming, rubber burning. His hand slips off, and the short one pounds on the side, fist thundering like gunshots. I lurch out of the alley, boxes tumbling behind me. My eyes are wide and my hands are locked on the wheel. A crash ensues. Metal explodes across the street. I clip some trash bins. My van slows, a little too slow. Then I hear my side door slide. He's in. An arm reaches and grabs a package and hurls it out, and his fingers claw for me next. I swerve really hard and the van fishtails. His grip then rips loose. He stumbles, curses, and fades off in the mirror. I don't think twice, I gun it. Another alley ahead. I swing in and it's narrow, tighter, walls closing in, headlights bouncing over the graffiti and broken glass. It's a fucking dead end, a fence with no way out. I slam my brakes and the van skids sideways. I turn the lights off quickly, duck low, and hold my breath. Footsteps echo off in the dark, slow and confident. Pipe scrapes against the brick. Screeches fill the alley, and it crawls up my spine. I glance, and my only chance is that gap between the dumpsters, and the side door is cracked open. I grab my phone, push it in my pocket, then throw open the passenger door, which creaks far too loud. I hear them sprinting. I dive and squeeze through the metal, tearing my arm open. Heat and blood. I don't stop. Push the door and it gives. I'm inside. A hallway swallows me, dark air thick with mold. My shoes slap against the concrete, every step echoing. Then their voices pour in behind me. I sprint blind, crash into a wall, and my shoulder starts screaming, but I keep running. A stairwell up, legs pump fire. Every floor the same, peeling paint, busted lights, trash crunching under my feet. The footsteps slam the stairs below me. Pipe bangs against the rail.
You shouldn't have seen that.
Certain death ahead. Room ahead. I dive in. Drop low behind a couch split open with springs. My breath rattles. My sweat drips. Silence, then creak of the floorboards. They're here. Bottle under my knee rolls, clinking across the tile. Shit. The knob twists, and I explode through the wall. Rotten wood splinters. Plaster rains down. I tumble into another hallway, coughing dust. Pain lights up my arm, but I'm moving. Stairs again, down this time, two at a time. Chest tearing open, lungs clawing up for air. There's an exit sign ahead, glowing red and buzzing. I slam through the door. Street light, cars rolling by. I stumble out into the open, blood streaking my arm. My chest is heaving, my knees are ready to buckle. People stare, some stop, none move. I spin. Doorway is empty, just dark, just still. The cops come later, flashing lights, yellow tape, questions that cut deeper than the wounds on my arm. I point to the alley, the carpet, the men. They search and nothing, just trash bags and flies. I tell them about the building. They check, condemned, empty, no footprints but mine. They look at me like I'm crazy. Long night, one says, scribbles it down. But I know the way to that carpet, the way it bent, the eyes finding me through the glass, that voice, calm as death. Weeks later, on the news, body found outside town, carpet, duct tape. They called it gang violence, retaliation, neat little box to put it in. But I was there, I heard it.
You shouldn't have seen that.
And I'll hear those words every time I park in that alley for the rest of my life.